Middle East is in chaos, so there are two questions: what's actually happening there and how investors and traders can profit from it. First things first, if you look already what's happened in last few days, there is a very good chance that this might be the largest Middle East conflict in at least recent decades. Because if you look previously at Israeli wars against Palestine or Lebanon, that was reduced to one place, which was borders of Israel. If you look at some sort of bombing of rebels from Yemen, these were like localized attacks which didn't make huge impact overall. Yes, there were drone attacks on Mediterranean Sea, on Saudi Arabia, and some instances on United Arab Emirates, but these were like a couple of rockets. And even if you are looking a bit more and like a bit more serious conflicts such as First and Second Gulf War, these wars actually were limited to Iraq, and actually many Gulf countries helped United States with their bases and with their infrastructure, and Iran and Israel stayed out of it. So this war actually is way more serious because there is one theater of war, which is Israel, where it's fighting against Lebanon or invading, depends how you look at it. Then it's fighting or invading in Palestine. It has Houthis conflict where they are shooting from their Yemen bases to Eastern Mediterranean. And there is second theater where Israel and United States is attacking on Iran in Gulf, and Iran is responding both to Israel and most importantly now is to across Gulf countries which has United States bases. That is Saudi Arabia, this is Bahrain, this is even Oman, Qatar and United Arab Emirates. So I don't think there has been recent wars which involved that amount of countries. So actually I would say this is pretty bad, and whoever thought that it was a good decision to attack on Iran in this fashion, I think made colossal mistake. I wouldn't dwell and say that was Donald Trump, because I believe Donald Trump isn't actually understanding geopolitics at all, and he doesn't have any real geopolitical deduction to understand some consequences beneath them first and second actions. There probably has been strategists and lobbyists which advised him that this is some sort of sensible move. Question who were those people who actually cheered him up and said you should do it. That's for the history to judge. That's not for me to judge, and that's not for us to discuss. That's one thing. Well, whether it would develop in broader conflict where there will be full-scale invasions or there will be like outright total war, I don't really know. It's too hard to say about this, but my bet is simple. Whether this will be a short military campaign for a couple of weeks and it will end and no one actually will win and lose, something what happened in summer of 2025, or second case would be that it will go bloody and messy and it will look like something like Iraq-Iran conflict or something similarly nasty. So let's seriously hope that this is not the second option, because then whole region will be in complete chaos and it will take decades to repair these types of consequences. And always remember, it's easy to start a war, but it's extremely difficult to end the war, and no one actually knows how the wars are developing, because many things are not due to the strategic decisions, but to simply sheer luck and coincidences. So always remember, wars are long, expensive, and in the long term it benefits no one. Look at American history since Second World War and see for yourself whether there have been instances when United States actually have made any meaningful economic or political gains for its wars. You could see answer for yourself. But now let's move on to financial markets. Once we have established general idea what's happened, let's go to more specifics regards economic and markets. Of course, most important thing is outside of Middle East investors and financial markets, that's a different thing. But if you look at global perspective, we have to see how this is disrupting natural gas and oil market. Actually, natural gas market situation is not that good, because Qatar recently mentioned that it ceased to produce and export its natural gas from its largest natural gas field, and Qatar is one of the largest natural gas producers and exporters in the world, and they are supplying like 20% of China's natural gas. So This is pretty serious, and also it has been reflected in Europe as well, because natural gas prices almost doubled. But here's the thing, yes, it rose to like 30 euros to like 50 euros, which seems a lot. But you know how much natural gas costed at early 2022 when Russia started full-scale invasion? 330. So in historical context, fluctuations from 30 to 50 actually is with the, I would say, expected range, and this is no natural gas disruption or natural gas spikes. Also consider the fact that now is summer season and people wouldn't use natural gas that much because heating season is over. So for now, for at least for Europe, there is no disruptions in natural gas market for now. What about Strait of Hormuz and 20% of oil deliveries to the world from Middle East, which is the major oil producer? Here's the thing, yes, Iran thought that they would shut down Strait of Hormuz. Yes, they are attacking to oil refineries and oil terminals in Qatar, United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, and also they just thought that they are significantly decreasing the oil production. But here's the thing, China is a major purchaser of Iran oil and major purchaser of many Gulf states oil. And they already told to Iran that they don't need serious supply disruptions because they are dependent on that oil. So that means Iran will be forced to listen to them because they are key supporters of Iran and they couldn't live without them. So China needs less Iran than Iran needs China, and they will listen. So I don't think it's actually possible to simply shut Strait of Hormuz down so no one could enter or exit. And even Donald Trump said that they will help insurance companies to insure ships which are going through Middle East, and they will do everything so that oil tankers are flowing nicely. Let's see, but my bet is that Iran wouldn't be able to simply shut it down. It doesn't have capacity to do that. So to conclude, if something bad happens in Middle East, there are two commodities which could affect whole world: natural gas and oil. For oil markets, reactions have been relatively, I would say, mixed. For natural gas, it's slightly worse, but let's see how this develops. And now let's go to financial markets and see what actually has happened and what we could do about it. First things first, I told you already about natural gas, but natural gas is an asset which you couldn't actually trade that easily compared to oil. Now let's go to oil. Oil have risen for like $8 to $10 in last couple of days. It war started at February 28, 2026, now is 4th of March. There has been, I think, like around $10 increase, but actually most of the gains in oil market was when the markets opened at early Monday because there were huge gap. Apart from that, they are slight of hovering around that initial gap price, and there hasn't been a large spike since. Of course, that might change, and no one actually knows how this war might develop, so I wouldn't say that there is things back to normal in 2 days. Let's see. But one thing I can say is that if you're a large long-term trend follower, which you should be if you trade markets, markets actually started to rise at early 2026, and then simply there was signal that trends is going upwards, and that means you could be in the market for last couple of months, and this spike actually was your simply way to make additional money because markets were already rising before you entered the markets few months earlier, and this is profit opportunity for you. Nothing more, nothing else. You shouldn't forecast what will happen with war, how it will develop, how will oil supplies be disrupted and all those things. That doesn't matter because trend was up. As a long-term trend follower, you are following trend, and rest of the facts are simply noise. If we go to gold, we see that this has very limited impact on gold market because gold made huge parabolic move at late January and early February when it spiked to 5,600 and then collapsed to 4,600, and now it's even around 5,000, 5,200 depending on the day. And now we had only one slight increase in gold, I would say a couple of days earlier, which corrected yesterday. And for other than that, there is simply no extra volatility or extra fluctuations in gold market. So that means also long-term trend followers simply were long gold a couple of months earlier, and they simply should continue to follow their trends, and basically it has very limited impact on overall precious metals markets. Thirdly, stock market. Actually, stock market, at least in Europe and in America, in Middle East is a different story, of course, but from global perspective, stock markets haven't reacted to these kinds of events at all. If you don't know that war actually started and look at S&P 500, there is no changes in volatility or spikes at either direction. So as markets were relatively flat since November 2025, now they are at the same level, so nothing much happens there. And that's important to understand, because if you also look at Gulf War I, Gulf War II, Israeli-Palestinian war, you see that actually global financial markets, especially bond market and stock market, haven't reacted to these markets at all, because these are still regional wars and they don't impact global trade and global consumer sentiment as much as people might like to think. That's an important thing to consider. So for long-term traders and trend followers, I would say this changed nothing, because major trends started in gold and oil a couple of months earlier. You simply had to follow these trends and make money along them. And stock market were relatively flat, and it's still relatively flat, so no changes there as well. As long-term investors, well, this also doesn't change a thing, because mostly long-term passive investors are following stock market indices and bond markets, and here there has been actually no changes at all. So that means you could watch and you could see what's happening in the Middle East, because that might be important for many people. But for investor, it doesn't change one thing. One thing. Yes, there might be headlines, but that rarely translates to real action in financial markets. Could it get worse? Absolutely. No one knows how world will develop and how wars might spin out of control. But in long term, there is nothing much you can do. If markets will fall, there will be long-term downtrends. Trend followers will make money. If you are a passive investor, you simply use dollar cost average and simply buy stock market indices for cheaper prices, because now we are still at all-time highs. This is really simple. Separate headlines and separate what actually happens in markets with your long-term trading and investing strategies. If you do that, you'll be fine, unless of course it doesn't concern you physically if you don't live there. That's a different story, but this video wasn't about it. So stay safe, look at markets, and have a cool head, because even these bad times could be your trading and investing opportunity.